I can't believe that it's already been a month since Google announced the Pixel 5a, yet here we are, well over a month later, and I'm still using it as my daily driver. If you've seen any reviews for this phone, you most likely already know that it's got a fantastic $450 price tag with the usual Pixel gleams, things like a spectacular camera, the latest Android version, quick software updates, 5G support, bigger battery capacity, a headphone jack, and it's water resistant now, which is a huge plus. But what you probably don't know is how well this budget competitor holds up after weeks of heavy use. So let's talk about that. Before I picked up this phone, the Pixel 5a, I was already using the more expensive Pixel 5 to familiarize myself with Google software. It gave me a basic idea of what I was going to get myself into and how the Pixel 5a would compare to its older brother. So I took it out of the box and instantly noticed how much bigger and heavier it was. It made it feel a lot more premium even though it's a lot cheaper than the 5. I also really love that it came with a headphone jack so that I can finally use the aux while I'm in an Uber. I also love that the lock key has a rigged pattern to make it easier to find, and that the back fingerprint sensor is still there. By the way, it still unlocks the phone fairly quickly and recognizes my fingerprints well. The only thing that I noticed about the phone's design after a month's use is that you may start to see creases on the back edges from your palm constantly being there. Other than that, I enjoyed the looks and feel of the phone. I also got a massive smile when I saw that it came with a charging brick. It's kind of sad that this is starting to become a rare instance now, but anyway, that smile instantly faded away once I powered on the phone and noticed that it was still running Android 11 on a 60Hz display. A huge bummer. Luckily, Android 12 became available a few weeks after that, and the software was a bit more fluid. Another bummer is that the Pixel 5a is incredibly similar to its predecessor, the Pixel 4a 5G. It's got the same form factor, same processor, the same amount of RAM, the same dual rear cameras and front camera, and the same 60Hz refresh rate. I mean, come on, at least throw in 90Hz. I can't tell you how hard it is to drop down to 60 once you use 90 or even 120. Higher refresh rates on smartphones have been around for over 4 years now, so I think at this point, it should be a norm to have at least 90Hz display, especially if the price is upwards of $400. OnePlus was able to do it with the OnePlus Nord and the new Nord 2, and Samsung even managed to include a higher 120Hz display within the similar priced Galaxy A52. Either way, I looked past the 60Hz and eventually, after a few days, I got used to it. It became more fluid once I updated it to Android 12 by joining Google's beta program. Apps would open much faster, navigating through the interface didn't feel as jolty, and animations were a lot more fluid. Android 12, in itself, practically saved this phone. And honestly, that just comes to show that, for the most part, even if your phone has the best specs on the market with some fancy bells and whistles, the software is still the foundation. If you don't have a strong foundation, then the entire thing falls apart. So with the Pixel 5a having a solid foundation, I wasn't even bothered that this phone didn't come with the top of the line specs. I just feel that it would have made for an even better experience if it came with 90Hz. On the topic of Android 12, I'm a huge fan, especially since it's a lot more playful, colorful, and exciting than the previous version. Android 12 is an entire video on its own, but quickly, the biggest new changes that I loved experiencing is the new dynamic theming system that makes your home screen and apps a bit more personal by having the colors match the home screen's wallpaper. On top of that, I love the new Material You design, which is already showing up on some Google apps. It's complete eye candy, and I still enjoy using all of the Pixel's software exclusives, including call screening to have Google Assistant deal with any scam calls or unknown numbers, Hold for Me, which also has Google Assistant hold any customer support calls and alerts me when a person finally jumps on. Lastly, the Now Playing feature is super useful since it puts the name of a song on my lock screen for any music that is playing around me. Perfect for when I'm at the club or any social event. So yeah, the Pixel software is incredible. The only thing that Google fell a bit short with is their update commitment. They only promised around 3 years of OS updates and 3 years of security patches. It may not seem like a big deal, but when you stop to look at the competition, such as Samsung or Apple, both companies have better promises for the future. Samsung promises 4 years of security updates for even some mid-range phones, while Apple has upwards of a 5-year update policy. For Google to be the gatekeeper to Android, 3 years is setting a poor example. As for the performance, it was mediocre, which is expected at this mid-range price. It's just as fast as the Pixel 5 and 4a 5G, which is no surprise since they all have the same processor. Apps did load quickly, although there was a bit of stutter when trying to interact with the app right away when it opened. Navigating the interface was fine, and for the most part, the phone could handle any simple task well. For gaming though, it's not the best choice out there since it can struggle to keep up with heavy 3D graphic games, and demanding workflows like editing can be a bit slower than higher end smartphones. It's obvious that this phone is more suited towards lighter usage such as responding to messages, emails, or consuming media. For me, I only really had a problem with the performance when the phone got extremely hot, and it actually gets hot to the touch real easily when it's hot outside, unfortunately. Not much you can do there, so you'll have to deal with it. Some functions such as the flash within the camera or video recording won't even work until the phone cools down. So the performance isn't terrible, but I think if Google would have included the newest and slightly faster chipset by Qualcomm, the Snapdragon 778G, those small stutters and lag spikes could have dropped immensely. Either way, there is a positive side to having a mediocre performing phone. The battery life is spectacular, and I mean spectacular in all caps. The 5A had no trouble lasting me through the entire day and a half, and it gave me the best screen time that I have ever seen on a smartphone. 8 hours. Yep, 8. And keep in mind that I'm a heavy user. I will go on my phone and use social media for 1 to 2 hours straight. That's actually kind of sad, but it's true. I will also watch YouTube for an hour, listen to music for a few hours, and do the usual messaging and emails, all while having my Bluetooth constantly on for my smartwatch, Wi-Fi or cellular data enabled, and the brightness set to near max. I don't even use dark mode. Nah, I'm just kidding, I'm not that crazy. But seriously, the Pixel 5a's battery life impressed me, and I wouldn't be surprised if, for some folks, they're even able to extend their battery life to 2 or even 3 days. The only thing that would have made this phone's battery life just that much better is by including a faster charger than just 18 watts. It does suck that the phone takes around an hour and a half to top up completely. It's not a huge deal, but it can come in handy, especially when you're in a rush. Oh, and wireless charging would have also been a neat addition. Now, using the phone for over a month, you can only imagine how many memories the Pixel 5a had to capture, and it did really well. There were a few times that it didn't get the job done, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but for the most part, I was satisfied. Now, the cameras on the back are the exact same lenses as the one found in the Pixel 5 and 4a5G, so I can't help but say that the pictures and video results are going to be very similar. But they're still incredible, especially for a phone at this price range. Not many mid-range smartphones can say that their camera is the main selling point. The only thing that changed with the cameras is that the ultra-wide now has a bigger field of view. It's now 119 degrees wide instead of 107, and this definitely came in handy for shooting landscapes or large environments. To top it off, the rear cameras were able to handle almost any lighting conditions I threw at it. The colors were extremely accurate and good lighting, exposure and contrast were on point, and it had good shadowing. During the night, shots were still detailed and Nightsight did a fantastic job of lighting up any dark environment, but I will say that low light shots aren't as detailed as I like them to be. For example, comparing it with the iPhone 12 Pro, you can clearly see that the iPhone provides a bit more detail and has less noise. Plus, there's no glare from that light post in the background, and that's another thing about the Pixel 5a. It has a really bad habit of suddenly getting a light flare, either from the sun or a light post. It only happens once in a blue moon, but when it does occur, it's pretty bad. Another pretty bad thing is that this phone has a bad habit of overheating easily while recording in 4K at 60 frames per second for just a few minutes. And when it does overheat, the video will cut out, and you'll just need to wait for it to cool down again just to be able to record again. I tried to see exactly how long it would record before the camera overheated, and I was only able to reach around 5 minutes and 30 seconds to 46 seconds. Google, that's kind of sad. Finally, the last thing I wanted to say about the camera is that I wish it had a telephoto lens. Sure, you have Google's Super Res Zoom feature, which for the most part does a great job in getting great close-ups by just using digital zoom, but it's not as good as the real deal. Getting this final third camera would make it the complete package, plus it would fill up the blank spot perfectly on the rear camera module, making it symmetrical. I know anyone with OCD would like that. Now, given that the phone is relatively cheap, corners had to be cut to bring down the price tag. Surprisingly, even making it $50 cheaper than its predecessor. And even though it's not the end of the world, there were just a few things that I missed having from using a higher end flagship. There are things like no wireless charging, no face unlock, which I'm not even sure why Google couldn't have just used the front camera, but it is what it is, no expandable storage, or even an upgradable variant for higher storage space than just 128 gigabytes. These are minor things that I wish the phone had, but remembering from last year with the Pixel 4a, water resistance was the biggest annoying missing feature. But now that it's here, I'm delighted with what I get at $450, and as for the other missing features, they aren't as important as water resistance, at least for me. Okay, so in a nutshell, I honestly enjoyed my time with the Pixel 5a, but I probably won't end up using it as my daily driver in the future for one small reason: the fact that it doesn't support a 90Hz refresh rate. That's the only missing piece of the puzzle, and it's honestly a huge deal breaker, at least for me. Every time I unlock the phone and begin to scroll, everything just looks laggy and not very smooth. For those who haven't used a 90Hz display yet, you most likely don't think that this is a big deal, but for those who have, you may feel what I'm saying. Once you go to 90Hz, let alone 120, it's really tough to just jump back down. Aside from that, the Pixel 5a has a ton of powerful features snuck into a mid-range price tag. Things like an incredible camera, the best battery life on a smartphone yet, a solid design with a fingerprint sensor and a headphone jack, water resistance, 5G support, a power adapter in the box, and a great software experience with fast software updates. If you can live without the higher refresh rate, then this is a great phone to get. It's also the perfect option for anyone who wants a phone that lasts for a really long time on a single charge, or for anyone who wants a solid smartphone experience but doesn't want to drop 10 or more Benjamin Franklins. On the other hand, it's not a great choice if you're a huge gamer, since the performance won't be able to keep up with most high-end graphic games. Or if you have the extra money to purchase a higher end flagship, including saving your money for the upcoming Pixel 6, I would actually do that instead. Or lastly, if you're like me and can't stand a 60Hz display, then I wouldn't get this phone. Anyways, that's my full review of the Google Pixel 5a after using it for an entire month. If I helped you in any way with your purchasing decision, all I ask is that you please drop a thumbs up. It helps out the video by getting it noticed by the YouTube algorithm. Also, why not get subscribed with the notification bell turned on? I promise that quality videos like this are a weekly thing on the channel. Plus, once the Pixel 6 gets released, I'll be one of the first to review it, so you definitely don't want to miss out on that. Either way, thank you guys for watching and tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Kapow!